We're in the museum, but the music museum. So how are we going to do this? There we go. So let's introduce Jonny Pierce of the drums. This is great. I'm having an best time right now. I'm ready. We haven't even started yet.
Yeah, this feels really good. This feels nice. Nice energy in here. I thought I would have to come out and have us all do some deep breaths together, but I actually feel pretty peaceful. So I think the anxiety thing we're good with that. I think. We'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah, but thank you all for being here. It means so much. I know you could be anywhere. There was an eclipse thing today, and it's really sweet that you came out. It means a lot to me. Thank you. Thank you.
I was about to do an eclipse joke and look over there as I was talking to you, but... So anyways, let's talk about the album. Let's talk about you. The album is entitled Jonny.
Yeah.
Okay, tell me about that.
Well, I don't know. I've realized as I get a little older and more seasoned in my life that, and in my artistic life as well, that the answers to questions in life, or a question like this, are more textured and layered than maybe you would see at first glance. Like I'll just try to break it down, because it's not just that I'm obsessed with myself. I actually really struggle with loving myself for much of my life, and so actually for the first 2 or 3 albums, I wouldn't refer to myself as an artist. I felt like, artists are people who do great things, and I had a lot of self-doubt, and so I've been working on that, trying to appreciate my gifts and my work, and so calling the album Jonny in part was, I don't know, a way for me to just kind of say okay, I'm here, I've arrived, personally for myself, I finally am appreciating who I am. So it was sort of a statement in that way, which I kind of talk about on the album. There's a lot of, I don't know, I guess another layer of that is that the album has a lot of different parts that some are conflicting. There's songs about deep love, there's songs about heartbreak, there's songs about sexual abuse and then healing, and there's songs that feel really at odds with each other, and that's each song kind of represents a different part of what I feel goes on inside of me, and so all of those parts together kind of create the self, and so they kind of create Jonny. So I felt like it was a nice title that kind of reflects all of those confusing but lovely parts.
Yeah, one thing I really appreciate about the album was you were able to speak in third person and first person kind of the same time, where you referred to perhaps your younger self coming into adulthood, and also kind of parenting your younger self at the same time, and so you're kind of looking at your older self and your younger self and finding your way. And your narration throughout the album, I just thought was such a beautiful sediment to your growth and your life and all that.
Yeah, thank you. I definitely was on that journey of kind of figuring out how to take care of myself in a way like I hadn't before. So I guess that's sort of like parenting myself. And I was up in my lake house, for COVID. It's like 5 hours north of the city. It's a tiny little cabin, actually. And it was just me for like a year. And in that time, I took a bunch of mushrooms. But not really to escape, actually. I would take a walk in the woods I bought this little like camping hammock that can fold up into a little pouch and you can put it in your back pocket. And I would like walk out into the woods and find a couple trees that I felt like I trusted, like I felt connected. And I'd talk to the trees, like, can I hang between you? And,
They talk back at all, or
in their own way, they
Yeah,
do talk
okay.
back, yeah. If you're patient.
And these are Trader Joe mushrooms, just so.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
You hear that, Grammy Museum?
Yeah.
Trader Joe's. But I was also kind of deep in therapy as well. I was doing a lot of like FaceTime therapy. And I'd also sort of assembled, I don't know, I was just focusing a lot on family. I grew up in a very religious space that was really abusive. Both my parents were kind of leaders of this cult-like community that was technically Christian, they would say, but it is the farthest to the extreme that you can be. So there wasn't a place for me in that space. So I spent a lot of time alone. And then when I moved to New York City, I started developing relationships. Some of them worked, some of them didn't. But around the time of COVID, I had really developed a meaningful relationship with a family who have actually now legally adopted me just a few years ago. So, yeah. So, yeah, I was really in that space of like family and love and parenting and what is it like to be a son and what is it like to be a parent, and I don't know, I was just obsessed with all this stuff and healing as I went, and then taking Trader Joe's mushrooms and being alone. There was so much being alone, like in that cabin. I had very few visitors, and I got a little puppy, and I learned that I'm trustworthy, by like feeding this dog every day and like teaching it. And there was just so much like kind of like love swirling around, but I was like the only one there,
So what you're talking about going to nature. From what I understand, the song "Green Grass" was one of the original demos.
Yeah.
From that.
Yeah.
And from there, it kind of formulated into more of this project of this letter to yourself, in a sense.
Yeah, I mean, the album was written, most of it was written in that time up there. And so, it took like 3 or 4 years to write. And when COVID kind of slowed down and we were able to kind of go back to life as normal, I came out to LA for a little bit and wrote some here. And it kind of just, this was an album that I didn't know I was writing. I honestly was in this zone of like, I was like in this COVID, like hideaway, also like trying to do things that are nice for myself. And part of that was like, let me write songs that I'm going to just assume no one will ever hear. And so I just wrote most of the songs on that album, really I never thought would have an audience. And I was looking for management at the time and signed up with these great people who manage me now. And they said, oh, it would be great if you sent us some music. And I was like, well, I have to start writing a new album. I don't really have anything. I mean, I have some songs, but they're just for me. And they said, oh, we'd love to hear it, So I sent the songs over, and they were like, you have a beautiful album here, and it took some real convincing to get me to let go of just having it just for me. And in the process of letting go of these songs was hard, because they really felt like, because I was in that kind of like family, mothering, fathering like space, I really like held on to these songs, and I was really nervous about handing them over to the world, but y'all treat them so nicely and with so much love. And no, really, thank you. It means so much to me that something that is that delicate and sweet would be loved when I hand it over. So that means a lot. Yeah.
You know, we talk about COVID, and for many, COVID was an absolute devastation for a lot of folks, and it was also a time for, you know, the people that did survive from it. Kind of a moment for us to kind of reflect on our complexities of what we deal with in everyday life with our phones or computer or just everything. And to me, I find that there's a lot of things that actually did come in such a beautiful way, such as this album, out of such that time, because you were able to almost bounce off of other people's miseries, in a sense, to kind of like find something in you that was a cathartic moment that you could like spit out as you're able to do such a thing. I first heard the album. I'm on the radio out here on KCRW, and I was always a fan, as you know, of you for, we're going on like 15 years now. And, you know, we met for the first time on your last show that you had here at the, what is it?
Shrine? The shrine?
No. It was at the cemetery, which is weird because my family is actually buried there. So I always have this like weird thing every time I go, you know. And, you know, we met for the first time, but prior to that, I found this album such an interesting album that it became one of my favorite of last year. And I started digging deep into it and just kind of listening, as we're saying, from your eyes and your ears, because I found it quite interesting of storytelling and something that we've kind of lost over, you know, the ages of listening to music and storytelling. It seems to kind of like fade away. And, you know, in this album, you're talking about religious upbringing, but something I really realize in this album is there's a lot of churchy sounds to it. And I don't know if it was, but I'm going to ask you right now, was any of this recorded in like even a church or even, you know, a place that you were able to have the big sounds? And was that anything in your head at the time?
Yeah, that's a really nice observation. Actually, on the deluxe version that just came out recently, there's a song called Noah, and it's dedicated to my boyfriend. It's about our love, and I don't know, like, I view our love as so sacred is the word. It is like a love that I have really searched for my whole life, and so I wanted to, and it sounds really backwards coming from a religious space that was very abusive, to actually make music that sounds like it was maybe recorded in a church cathedral, right? Because of the sacredness of the love. Like, I wanted to honor it in that way. So it's a little like bent over backwards. It's a little like opposite of what you might think I might do. But that's also a part of like this album. It was kind of like, I'm just going to like let what happens happen. This is going to be an experiment with self. Like, whatever wants to come out, I want to honor that and let that happen. And because I didn't think anyone would hear this album, a lot of really interesting stuff happened, you know. I think a lot of my healing has actually been kind of being able to not embrace the church. I don't think I'd ever find myself doing that, but not actively running away like as a lifestyle. There's, you know, they say like you leave one prison just to end up in another one. Like, my whole life, my whole thing became about, and a lot of my music became about like kind of like a screw you to how I was raised. But then there were times in my life where that's all it was. So I ended up kind of, even though I was like rebelling and I was far away, it technically still had a real hold on me because it was affecting the type of art I made. It was affecting how I felt about my place in the world and my own sense of identity, you know. So yeah, I to make something that feels a little churchy and not feel hatred in my heart, right? Like to just let that be gentle and soft and be curious about it rather than just like pushing it away because it has something churchy, you know? That feels like good in my body. And I love that I can stop running so hard. I'm still kind of, it's like a casual walk, you know? That's where I'm at, yeah.
No, I mean, that to me that's fabulous because you're showing and you're talking about the things that, you know, I don't want to say we're back to cathartic again, but the way you present it is in such a nice fashion, you know, even though you had a history of stuff that you didn't want to deal with. By saying this, you're almost putting that all in the forefront of saying that I'm not afraid of that.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid of that anymore. You know?
It's actually letting yourself out of jail in a way, you know.
Yeah.
And I will say, the technical side of your question, this whole album was just recorded like in my bedroom.
It was.
Yeah, like everything. Yeah.
No window was open.
Just
or
me
under a
doing
tent or, yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
No, going back to, you had the song, and one thing that I'm a sucker for in albums are kind of these like little interludes and skits. And, you know, I was first aware of that in an album by the band De La Soul that did 3 Feet High and Rising, and they would create these skits throughout because their story was the same thing. So you things kind of meshed together, and there's not a lot of records that I hear today, and we'll talk about sequencing a bit, but for you out there, sequencing is a term used in music when you organize the albums, right? So if you've heard Abbey Road by the Beatles or What's Going On by Marvin Gaye, it's kind of like every song kind of goes into every song, or they're put in a certain fashion. You know, it's kind of like a storybook in a sense.
Sometimes it's chronological. Sometimes it's random.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's your label forcing you to do it a certain way.
Right.
Which I've never had to do, thank
Right.
God.
But you had the song Harms, you know, talking about Motherless Virgin Mary, and then going to Little Jonny, which was talking to you as an adult in a sense. What was the reasoning for putting two kind of interludes back to back like that? Because that's unusual in the sense of the story itself.
Yeah, well, actually, the Virgin Mary, I've actually never even thought of that. That wasn't in my head. For me, but I like that you brought it there, and it makes sense in this textured way. But yeah, you know, there were because I call this album my like time travel album, where sometimes I would like put on a time travel helmet and I would go back to a younger Jonny and write from his standpoint, because, you know, maybe sometimes I'd go back to like the 12-year-old or the 13-year-old Jonny and give him a chance to speak, because when he was 13 he didn't have that voice to kind of like say what he wants or express his feelings or feel safe to do that. So there was a lot of like going back in time, and and then there's like the present me who's writing it, right? So I'm kind of in dialogue with my younger self, and I'm kind of like, okay, for little Jonny, or for Harms, I'm gonna give the young boy Jonny a chance to lament his suffering. And so that's like the younger me saying like, I don't have love, like I'm alone, I'm in pain, I have all this harm done to me. And then it flows right into the song Little Jonny, which is present day me singing sort of a lullaby to soothe that younger Jonny. Yeah. So.
But you did it total in 2.5 minutes. It seems like 3 minutes.
Yeah. Well,
but it was an intense
love
song.
is just simple, you know.
Yeah. Love is simple.
Yeah.
Love is simple.
I think real love is quite simple, powerful but very simple. Yeah.
Simple it is.
I think that's why a lot of my songs they're not really flowery with lyrics. You can kind of just say it.
But there's an urgency to them. The music is urgent.
Yeah, because I'm in pain.
No.
Like, come on, let's get this moving. Anytime now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the longing, it's the longing. You hear longing in my songs because my heart is a heart that longs.
Right.
And I don't play it cool. I don't, I think when we're kids, we get all this messaging that, like, as we grow up, we have to come across as, like, everything is okay. So we learn to put on armor and to protect ourselves by putting on a smiley face. And I've just kind of refused to do that,
Right.
I think that's how, like, bands over the years kind of they can't write good songs when they're older because they're afraid to talk about what's really in their heart because that would be too vulnerable. But then they lose their audience. They lose an audience because everyone's like, well, they're not really, like, it doesn't really touch my heart.
Right.
Like, I don't want to listen to this. I liked their old stuff when they were teenagers because they just said shit,
Yeah.
And I've always tried to, like, remember that I'm like a child, just like we all are. You're a child in, like, a bigger, older body. We all have those worries and those pains and those sorrows and those joys and the exuberance. We all are very human in that way. So I just really like to talk about that part of the human experience, And I do, like, lean towards being more vulnerable than I think most artists. And I've done I've psychoanalyzed myself, like, nonstop all day long. Too much, I'm sure. But I wonder if I've always wondered to myself, like, why am I more vulnerable than the next artist, or the artist before me? Like, what is that about? And I do think it's all still, like, goes back to that little kid who's just like, I want to be seen. Because to be seen gives a platform, an opportunity to be loved. Like, you can't love something you don't see and you don't know. And so I think there's this drive in me to be seen. And so I'm just going to tell you everything so you can really get the picture of who I am so that I can be loved. Like, I think that's where that comes from. And I don't necessarily need to do that now, but I guess this is what I do now, It just kind of evolved that way. And I kind of, like, there's days where I'm very sheepish about what I've put out there, a little embarrassed sometimes. It's like an emotional hangover or vulnerability hangover where you're just kind of like, oh my God. But I think at the end of I always do, like, deathbed thinking, like deathbed thinking. If you stop and think about, like, what you're going to actually care about in your deathbed, like, I think I'll look back and be really proud that I led with my heart and wrote with my heart. And I get people that roll their eyes at that, but I'm learning to be okay with that. Yeah.
You're talking about being seen. The photographs, the pictures.
Not safe for work, I found out.
But that's okay because it talk about vulnerability and how we're all vulnerable. And one thing that to be naked on a cover for the world to see, you are beyond vulnerable in that sense. You're like, here I am. This is me. What do you have to say about that? And I know we were chatting a little before. Every time you would release a different album, I thought it was just funnier and funnier in a peculiar way, each picture. And you wrote, and you wrote me, and you said, just wait till the next one. Right? And you kept saying that. So what was the start of, when were those photos originally taken, and why were they originally taken, and what made you come back years later to put it on this record in singles?
Yeah, a lot of people think they were recent photos, but if only I had a body that sprightly anymore. Like maybe 12 years. It was like Portamento era. I was just grappling. I would think I was in that sort of space of like, you know, I referred to earlier, you leave one prison to end up in another one when your whole life is just rebelling against the first system you grew up in. And I think I was in that prison at the time. And I drove upstate, and I had a little black and white camera and a tripod. And I don't know what came over me, but I drove upstate to my childhood home and climbed up this way that I could get to my childhood bedroom window, and I opened it. I timed it because I knew my parents, no one would be in the house because it was like Sunday morning church service. And I set up a tripod, and something just came over me. I wasn't sure what I was going to do. There was that urgency, right? And then before I knew it, I was naked in my childhood bedroom. So there's a lot to psychoanalyze there for sure. And I just started using the self-timer and taking all sorts of crazy shots. And then I remember coming back to the city feeling kind of shaken, kind of like, am I a crazy person? Like, really, it was like a crisis of self. I was really worried about myself. And at the time I showed my manager, and she said, you must never show those photos to anyone. Because I was really kind of excited. I thought, I think I want to use these for something. I'm not sure what. Aren't they beautiful? And she was just kind of, nervous, very nervous for me. So I listened to her. I put them away. And then when I was writing this record, it just felt like, because I was talking about the dialogue with my younger self as I was writing these songs. You know, I as like the older modern day Jonny, like giving the gift of the younger Jonny, like the chance to express himself through some of these songs, I felt like these photos are the younger Jonny, 12 years ago, offering me a gift as like the artwork for the album. And so it felt like this really symbiotic love, like from older self to modern day self, like this back and forth dialogue. Like I had a collaborator with a 12 years younger Jonny. Yeah.
You know, I look at it as almost like you went in there, kind of broke into the house in a sense, and this is where you kind of started to be free. And the nudity aspect was being free. And here you're with the album, fast forward, coming out and being kind of free again.
Yeah, it felt very applicable. It felt like it made a lot of sense. And but then, you know, there's also, everything is textured, right? Everything is layered. So I think there was also possibly a part of me that, you know, there's part of me that's like, I'm free. I'm in this house where this abuse is happening, and I'm naked. And then there's that other part that's like, I'm in this house where there was abuse happening, and I'm naked. You know, like there are two ways to look at that. And so I've done a lot of wondering, and I have a lot of curiosity about what that really was about for me. And maybe it's about multiple things, but it's those photos are very charged for me. I think also I've always struggled with like self-image and how I look and how I present myself. I've just always been very nervous about that. And it was something just like smashing all of that by just being like, here it is, you know? So, yeah, you know, there's days where I wake up and I see that artwork and I cringe like crazy, like deeply embarrassed, and regret it and want to change it all. And then there's days where I feel really like empowered, and then there's days where I just feel nothing about it. You know, it's a mixed bag for sure. Yeah.
Well, as a fan, I hope you don't change it, because no, not in that sense, but just to me it adds to more of the story of what's going on here, and that's why I just, you know, I absolutely love it. And one of the pictures that I thought was absolutely brilliant and funny was the wreath. And you titled the single "The Flowers" in front of "Drop Down Your Flowers." And I don't know if that was on purpose, but it seemed to make sense.
Yeah, well, that one I just we had like a lot of singles for the album, and I was like running low on what would work. I don't love how I look in that photo, and I don't love that photo, but yeah, there were flowers, and I thought, oh, this is gonna be a little hokey, but we'll just do this. Flowers for the flowers.
What are the flowers as far as the songs?
Oh, God, I mean, they're all so special to me. I made a rule for myself to never put out music that I don't think is beautiful, like absolutely beautiful, and it has to feel important for me. So I'm not. I treasure each one, and I think each one sort of supports the system, or the. It's all a foundation for what is the album. It's the scaffolding. That's what I'm trying to say. Scaffolding. That's the word. Yeah, it's all important to support the main themes, and so yeah, each piece I thought was really important. I might have left off the last song. I used to want to die, because.
But now I don't want to.
Yeah, but now I don't want to die. That's how it goes. The lyrics. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's a little too on the nose. Maybe the rest of the album feels more curious and like trying and not sure. And then that one is just such a statement. And it is true. Like, I do not want to die. I feel I'm happier than I've ever been. I really struggle with sadness, and that will always be part of me, but I've sort of transformed how I feel about sadness. I actually feel like it's kind of my buddy,
In a sense.
like, in a sense, yeah, and a writing partner. And like I try to view it for the beautiful things that it shows me and teaches me. But I also have a lot of joy in my life now, so but yeah, I in a way I would have loved to not make that statement and just leave the album. So maybe if I would change one thing, it'd be take that off. But I also have a lot of people write me about that song and say it really touches them. So I don't know.
Well, again, looking at it from different eyes and ears, what is it? It's listening to kind of the songs, and even though those are at the end, I kind of look at it as like a book where you have a forward, the content, and at the end of the book you kind of have the epilogue or whatever it is. And I can look at those as the epilogue, because when I listen to the album, you start off with the original single, which is "I Want It All," right? And to me, it almost felt like the album ended at Obvious, with the same kind of tempo and the same kind of feeling, and then the rest was just almost as your epilogue, in a sense, where you're not done. There's still more story to be said, and you had this story in this bookends, and the rest was, okay, now we're just starting.
Yeah, I think it will always be. I'm a real truth seeker, right? Like, so, and I'm also committed to like remaining curious about myself. I really feel like when I'm not asking questions about myself, when I'm not trying to understand more, that's where I sink into like a real sadness. When I am really engaged with myself and really just going to those deeper depths, allowing that to be there, and exploring that, even if it's a little scary sometimes, that's where I actually feel the most alive. And like down there and all of that stuff is like often where I find the keys to my joy and my happiness. Like, joyful moments come from those moments of like, moments of revelation almost, So I'm very curious about myself. I'm very curious about other people. Like backstage, I asked you, what makes you most nervous in your life, because I'm trying to get to know you. And yeah, I don't know. I think.
And we all put up shields.
Well, yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm sure I still do, even though I think I do a good job of not, and I'm sure I have so many blind spots. But that's why I get to keep making albums, right? Because like those blinds, I could do a whole album on an area where I've just discovered, I thought I knew, but I didn't know it all, and now I get to write about it. So, yeah, it's an exciting time. I feel like honestly, this last album feels like my first real album for me, where I've also been so not present, like for the first album, Portamento, all of that. I think I was writing from my gut, but now I'm writing from my heart and my gut, Right. Like Portamento, there was lots of longing and stuff, but I was in such chaos that I wasn't really there for it, So when I started recognizing that people loved that album, it was just a head scratcher for me, because it was like, well, I made that record, but now I'm on to the next thing, and now I'm on to the next thing. But it was all like TV fuzz, like static chaos in my head. So I wasn't present for anything. And I would go out and play shows, and show would start and it'd end, and I'd have no memories of it. It was just like kind of in a panicky space. And I got really good at pretending that wasn't happening, but it was. And like as I'm sitting here now, I feel very like engaged with what's happening. I feel like present. It's lovely to like look out and see everyone here and feel your love coming to the stage. And I love that I'm able, like the Jonny record, like I was present for writing that. Like I was just in it. And that's sort of a new legacy that's begun for me, my own personal legacy for myself. It's like that, like being present in an interview like this, which typically this would be like, no way in hell I would do it. Just too much anxiety. But it also helps to have a lovely chap like you, So,
No, I mean, even though we haven't known each other for a long time, as a fan, I felt like I've kind of learned about you over the years, and I so appreciate that, and meeting you. It's a cool moment, to understand all this kind of stuff. Something you said about figuring it out. I'm 53 and I still gotta figure it out, So anybody who's younger here, and take your time with it, don't run from anything. Just, walk to it. You don't need to run, you can walk. And take your time and be you, and learn about you, and learn about others out there. And, it's the collective we, not the collective just me, Would you agree?
Yeah, those are all nice things.
Singing in rhyming form, and then we have a song, so.
Yeah. No, that all felt very sweet and nice. Yeah.
Rico Nasty.
Yeah.
Let's. How did that happen?
Yeah. Well, I feel lots of love in my heart for her. How did this come about? So I had heard through the grapevine that Nardwuar had interviewed Rico, and that Rico was a really big, she had mentioned something about being like really loving the drums, and I thought that was really sweet. And there's artists where just right away I'm like, they get it, whatever that is, they like get it, and she's one of them. And so I believe I reached out on Instagram, something like that. And this was a couple of years ago. And then just recently when we were making the record, I just asked if she wanted to be a part of something. Or no, they reached out. She reached out to me and asked if I wanted to like make music. And I just said, funny you ask, I'm making an album, and I have a song that I think would be really lovely if you were on it. So we got together in LA and sat down in this studio, and we had our engineer and my manager, Ben, and it was like, I don't know what happened. We were talking like we were on mushrooms. Like we just went to this beautiful, tender space. She got, her brand often is it's like screamy and aggressive, and she just became so gentle and sweet and kind of shy, and it broke my heart. And I just loved her so much in that moment, and we just talked. I think we talked for hours before we recorded anything. It was just boom, 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 and she said, I've been thinking about singing, but I feel like my fans expect me to rap, and you probably expect me to rap. And I said, my goal for you today is to walk out of here feeling really good about what you did. And that includes if you do nothing, if we don't record anything. Like, I just want you to honor what you want, period. That's it. And she goes, yeah, well, I'll record something, but maybe I'll sing some other time or whatever. And so, okay, cool. Yeah, if that's what you want to do, let's do it. And so I was fully prepared for her to rap. And we hit record, and she just starts singing. And I just started crying because I get emotional right now just thinking about it. It is so beautiful to see someone employ courage, like self-courage, and become like vulnerable, open up even just a little bit, and like step forward into that. And I just, I was short of sobbing. And I was just like, I don't know, it hit me like a ton of bricks. It was so beautiful. And she nailed it. It was like one take. Okay, we're good. It was so easy. And then she left. We talked some more, and she left. And I turned to my manager, Ben, and I said, that was the best session I have ever done with someone. And as I said that, she sent me a text. That's the best session I've ever done.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. It was just a really sweet moment. Yeah. And, I am not a collaborator. And as a kid, I learned to survive by being scrappy and figuring it all out, and I still have it in my bone marrow. Like, I'll do it. I got it. There's a reason I had 3 original band members, and they're all gone now. I'm just kind of like, I got it. I will do this. Don't worry. I could probably write a better bass line.
Yeah, how many instruments do you play, by the way?
I think I can play anything,
Right.
but I play it all wrong and bad.
Right.
I really like to, John Fox. And this is like the only music reference I have. I'm not a music reference guy, but John Fox, like a synth pioneer of yesteryear, he would have his assistant take like the new analog modular system, whatever, that was like brand new in the 70s or whatever, and he would instruct his assistant to, like, I think I have this correct, but like turn it upside down, nail it to the wall, and cover up all the labeling so that he's approaching the synthesizer just by like listening and guessing and falling into kind of happy accidents. And that always really inspired me, to do things in ways that are different, to approach music in a kind of a strange way, let it be odd. Like Portamento and the first album and the first EP, I never tuned a guitar once. Like, it was just like, those songs are really out of tune with like actual tuning. So if you like play along, it sounds awful. And I liked it. I liked that I didn't tune. I was like, yeah, this is like cool. That's cool to just be gnarly like that. And I had like a broken synthesizer, and I was like, this is the only synth I'm going to use, and I'm just going to like use those limitations and make it weird. I was also broke, so I couldn't afford anything.
Right.
It's like one good thing about being poor is like you can create really cool shit,
Well, it's funny you say happy accidents because, especially in music, because in lyrical writing, there is a method called the cut-up method that was perfected, I guess, by Bryson, but William S. Burroughs, the beatnik writer from the Beat Generation, would say if you get stuck on certain verses and whole paragraphs of verses and it doesn't seem to fit, cut it up and then just redo it. And Iggy Pop has done stuff. David Bowie has done that in their work.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool that you did that with music, where you're like, okay, you know what? It's a little out of tune, but so what? That's a new sound.
Cool.
So let's take that sound and create something new out of it.
Yeah, I've always not liked when things are done really, in a sort of like the standard way. Well, when I was a kid, I kind of like became this rebel, right? And I think and then suddenly I was kind of sticking out a little and people were paying attention, and I think it's been part of like how I've survived for so long is to like run the other direction. Like there's a lot of bands that started when the drums started that were kind of in our genre, whatever, that aren't around anymore. And I think like I never attached myself to any ship. I kind of stayed on my own little life raft because I didn't know I was doing it, but I was doing it. That survivor in me was like, no, because if the Titanic goes down, you go down with it. Like,
No.
you need to stay on your little boat and do your thing and like push away from those big ships. Like if there's a trend, like run the other direction. So a lot of that was like reactive, but I didn't know. It was more from like a gut, like subconscious space. But I also just like stirring the pot. I like I'd rather have things be odd and a head scratcher than like easily digestible and just like sweet and nice. That's a little boring for me. So there'll always be that part of me that just kind of twist a little bit, So, and once I don't have that anymore, I'll probably stop making music. I'm not sure why I would keep going.
Do you think it's a punk rock attitude?
Yeah, it is. I mean,
any punkers here?
Yeah.
Yeah. We still wear our funky shoes, man. You could always tell.
Yeah, I think you're
never happy with. You're happy, but you're never happy with just settling. You want it more, in a sense.
Well, I want to make people think and make people feel, and I want to feel and be thinking and be aware and I like when things, so if I don't know, I've just always thought it was cool to like throw a wrench in it, like maybe that's, oh God, now I'm like, am I self-sabotaging?
No, not at all.
I just had this epiphany. I'm like, I could be like much more famous right now. I could have lots of money.
Let me tell you
something. I could
something.
win all the Grammys.
You have such, what do they say, not to say it's 10, but 10 super fans is better than 1,000 fans, And, and I've only actually seen you play once. Maybe it was a festival or something else, because I never count festivals as shows, but, and especially, you playing in Mexico a lot too. You have a huge fan base there, and you really put on a show, and you get the folks engaged a lot. So, sabotaging, I wouldn't say so. I think they're there for that weird tweak.
Yeah, and I'm there for it too. To be honest, I mean, I did a show over COVID where I just carried a big wrench in my hand for no reason the entire show.
Did you really?
Yeah. Then Caroline Polachek carried a wrench at the Grammys, and I was like, I see you. I see you 4 years later.
That's awesome.
So I'm just kidding. I love Caroline. She's sweet.
So on this album, did you take those knobs a little bit and decide to go left or right with it? Just kind of play with it, because we talked about having that choral sound. Anything else in that album that's a little bit different? Out of your normal standard? Yeah. So I kind of grew up near this little cabin that I now own and sort of live out of right now, where I've written a lot of the music of the last album and the albums before, frankly. It's on a glacial lake called Seneca, and it's in Mushroomville, right? Yeah, exactly. It's one of the deepest lakes in America and the world. It's like very deep, and it really has a life of its own, but it's very soothing to me. I think technically we love the sight of water. Like, we go to the beach for vacation. The reason water soothes us is it reminds us that we can, like, water is life, right? So it makes sense that we love to look at the water because it reminds our body that we're not going to die. And I think there's something really peaceful looking out on Seneca Lake and just hearing the waves. And I don't know, I wanted to incorporate more
fluidity and kind of go into more gentle space and honor kind of like those feelings and those elements that were happening for me throughout the 4 years of making the album. I was just taking walks in the woods and touching trees and talking to them, and so it wouldn't make sense to make an album that was a bunch of like rock and roll bangers. It just would have been too violent. And so there's some of that, but yeah, I think even like I Want It All, there's like a swirling, there is something, even though it's driving, there's something kind of tender in that song as well. There was a lot of tenderness happening. Yeah. So that's the biggest tweak, I think, was really, I still use the same instruments and the same guitar and the same synthesizer. Everything's the same, but I was different, and I was feeling more gentle, more peaceful. So I'm really about authenticity. So I couldn't write like a record full of like, let's go for it bangers. I needed to honor the gentle and the calm, for me to be able to be kind of like proud of the work. Yeah.
Did you play any of these? I mean, you played all the instruments in the thing, or did you have other people?
Yeah, I played 95%.
Wow.
I brought in a violin player because I can't play violin, and one of my friends helped me with some intense guitar picking because I can't move my fingers. Like, I don't know how to do that. So,
Are you comfortable when other people play your music on stage versus when you recorded and played it? Is it a little bit different because you're not really playing it?
Yeah, I think our live shows, I mean, I'm sure a bunch of you have been to them, and they're a little more rock. You listen to the record, and there is a more like a mid-fi, lo-fi, gentle kind of bedroom quality. And then I have guitar players that really want to rock. And I'm always telling them, like, less cock rock, like, less, like, think of the album. And it's like a lost cause. So now I just, they're just going to let it rip. And I'll just swirl around and try to be, like, graceful with my dancing. I'll balance it out.
Come on, we like it a little bit louder, right? Turn it to 11.
Yeah, people like it, yeah.
Old Spinal Tap reference right there.
What do you guys think? Can I actually ask y'all a question really quick? I was thinking, because I feel like this is friends and family a little bit, and so I have this, like, sometimes I have this desire, and then sometimes I don't at all. But sometimes I have this desire to, like, for my next record, I call it, like, Smashing Pumpkins it out. Like, in the sense of, like, actually maybe go to a producer and maybe be like, hey, let's make, like, a really lush, but, like, a drums album, and I'll write all the songs, but you help me, like make it sound like a radio quality, because I'm just in my bedroom. I've never, like, took a course on how to do it. I just teach myself, and, like, so I don't know, like, in this spirit of, like, trying to learn to collaborate more without wanting to kill myself.
But not kill yourself.
I don't know, like, or should I just keep doing it like how I've been doing it, or would you be interested in something like that? You would? Oh, I like that. Yeah. Oh, that's a good answer. Whatever makes me happy. Yeah. And that's what ultimately I'll really try to do. Whatever makes me happy. But I think that might make me happy. But we'll see. And don't tell anyone. It's just between us. We don't know. Again, it's every once in a while I have the urge. But yeah, it's like a little itch I've been scratching. So yeah. Yeah. Maybe do that.
Yeah. What if it is with a producer and you at the same time, almost side by side? It's almost like a reprise of the songs.
Too much work.
You think so? I heard a few oohs and ohs in there, man.
Well, the thing about me is the self-discovery mode, it's moving quick. And so I have a lot to write about. So I don't want to spend too much time in one phase. I want to, like, keep writing and, like, new stuff, new songs. But we'll see. It's kind of an interesting idea. Yeah.
Should we turn it over to our guests?
Yeah,
Are
just
you ready?
one last question I have with you. When did you realize the album was done?
I don't remember. I think that it kind of just told me, right? Like it really had a heartbeat, and it was just ready to be birthed. Yeah, sometimes it's just done. There isn't like a moment other than this ambiguous messaging from the work that's like, we're good, like I'm ready, you know? And and then I just had to start emotionally preparing for the handover, like, to the world. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's kind of a baby being born, coming out of the belly and
Absolutely.
into the world itself. And
Oh my God, yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
That's like really like mama bear.
Right.
Like that's how I feel. Yeah.
So yeah, let's get a few questions from anybody here. I mean, you're here for the drums, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I can't even see. Let's go to this left side over here because I said I'd pick on you guys first. Raise your hand if you have a question. Right there in the corner, left corner. Stand up. Tell everybody your name, where you go to school, and no.
My favorite childhood memory was my oldest brother Jimmy and I would, of course this involves rebellion. I don't know, like I grew up with 5 siblings, and it was really an everyone for themselves kind of household, so there wasn't a lot of like bonding happening. But my older brother Jimmy, he was the one that would like come home with a stack of CDs, and I would like steal his CDs and like listen to them and steal his clothes from his bedroom and go out and look really cool, and he'd get mad at me and stuff, but I could tell he also thought it was kind of sweet. And I remember like one Saturday night, we didn't have TV, we weren't really allowed to have TV for many years, and he like stuck in this little like black and white TV with like the antennas on the top. I don't know where he got it. Yeah, on
Radio
Saturday
Shack,
nights, and we started this tradition. He and I was just like, me? Why me? But okay. And we'd jump on his bed and we'd turn on Saturday Night Live.
Right.
And we would watch Saturday Night Live for like a year or two. Like every Saturday, that was like our thing. It was really sweet because outside of that, there wasn't a lot of bonding. And then another thing that was always sweet to me was I didn't have a close relationship with my mother at all. But if I ever got sick, she would like show up with ice cream sundaes for me, and that always really touched me as a kid. I felt like loved in that moment, and so those are sweet memories.
Is that still with ice cream sandwiches? Kind of like bring it back each time.
Well, it did turn into binge eating every night, like for comfort, soothing. So I don't know if it kind of backfired.
Yeah, all right. Now, were you the youngest child, or?
No, I was middle.
Middle?
Middle, yeah. Yeah. Jimmy, Yenna, Jesse, Julia, or Jonny, Jesse, Julia, and Josh.
All J's.
Yeah, my mother would say, and don't forget Jesus. My mom would bake birthday cakes for Jesus on Christmas. I'm not kidding. And all the kids would sing Happy Birthday, Jesus, and blow the candles out.
That's an album, Jonny Part 2, coming soon to also a theater near you. Okay, let's go over here in this left-hand corner, or right-hand corner for us. Raise your hand if you have a question. In the back, white shirt, glasses. You back there, all the way in the back. You got it. Yeah, you. Whoa. We can barely see up here, so.
Hi. Thanks for that question. It's really thoughtful. I I started making music as like a means to survive. You know, music kind of helped me live and be okay to like pay my bills and stuff and not be on the street. And so when people, and very quickly, people labels wanted to put it out. I was like, you know, I like wrote a few songs and then it was just like boom, it was kind of overnight and it really took me by surprise. But then it was like the train was moving and there wasn't a lot of time for like reflection and kind of slowing down, like, what is it that I want to do? Like, who am I as an artist? It was just, okay, Pitchfork says you're the best, so you got to go do it. And it was really was like that overnight. And so it was like, okay, yeah, right, tour. And it was nuts. And honestly, like, kind of violent in a way. When I look back, I was like, I wasn't ready for that. And I was just thrown in the deep end, and I didn't have a support system, and it was really... So those songs were like kind of like the best I could do in a way, right? Like, and then when COVID happened, I was able to reflect. It was like the first time in my professional life, in my adult life, maybe in my life, that I was able to just like be quiet all day. And it's like, oh my God, and like, whoa, this person sort of materializes in front of you. That is you. And you're just kind of like, so it was like suddenly this relationship with myself that I didn't know I could have. And it was really rich and colorful and vibrant and scary sometimes, and then sometimes really thrilling, and then sometimes very tender. And also, just before COVID, I had been really talking about maybe not making music anymore. I was starting to take courses in psychology, and I was thinking maybe I would be a therapist and help people one-on-one and learn a lot about myself in the process, and I thought that sounded really nice. I was just like in that mode of like self-discovery and all that, and I was also starting to walk away from the idea of making more music. So when suddenly I had this urge to make music, it was kind of like, all right, if I'm going to do this, I've really got to do it different. I've got to like know who I am as I'm writing these songs. I've got to write from like right here in my heart, you know, and I can't compromise. There can't be anything on here that doesn't feel 100% genuine and real. And I need to write these songs when I'm in a peaceful place, not when I'm frantic, not when I'm just running as fast as I can to try to survive and figure it all out. So it was kind of one of those things, like if I'm going to do this, I've got to do it this way. Does that answer your question? Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that you made the right decision about not being the one-on-one, just as she said, because your music and your story is more therapy for others, even though we hear it as a record or read it as a book, whatever it is, we take what it is and we learn from that within the songs itself. I think everybody here has listened to a song that has either made us cry or laugh or sad or whatever it is, or bring back those memories, and that's what's so powerful about music rather than $250 an hour. So
I mean,
no.
Means a lot. Thank you.
What? Now now your second album, I can't remember the name. I just keep forgetting that word each time. Portamento. Yeah. It's a music theory term. It's a way of like sliding notes into each other. And our mutual friend was actually saying today that, and it's kind of cool when I think about it. The younger generation of musicians are actually kind of gearing towards that whole beachy vibe and that Portamento style that you kind of like created 15 years ago. So,
well, I was thinking about the beachy style.
Yeah,
we were just talking about it, and you know, the Summertime EP and the first album and some of Portamento had sort of that beachy, and even like the really early stuff was kind of Americana-esque, at least like the imagery was and all of that, and it was really confusing me looking back. I didn't know why I was into that, and when I look back, I'm like, I'm not proud of America at all. I never have been. Why am I making like an Americana record? It's not Americana the genre, but like, you know, the themes and all of that. And then I remembered, oh my God, I wrote those when Obama was running for president. And it was the first time in my life I was excited about the country. That's what that was. And then like, oh mama, I want to go surfing. That was like, my heart probably really wanted to say Obama. For sure. For sure, that makes so much sense to me.
You seem to take music head on.
Yeah.
For reason in that punk vibe that we talked about, that it's a juxtaposed way of doing it. You give the middle finger by doing whatever it is. If like you don't want to, if you're against the church or what you felt that it's done to you, you hit it with the little church stuff.
Yeah.
It's like you're punching back. You do a lot of this like.
Well, it's a
but
bit
good-
of reclaiming, I guess.
Yeah.
Right. It's kind of like, oh, I'll take that and do it my way. Yeah.
And even with the the Americana things, like, you know what, this is how I look at it.
Yeah. I guess it is. Yeah.
You know, it's interesting. I like that. All right, let's go to the middle here. Oh my God. Whoever stands up first gets the question. All right, right there, you got it.
Hey. Oh, thank you. Well, that's good to know.
The book's $500.
And it comes with a free therapy session.
Called The Album.
I love that because, you know, I've toyed around with that idea a bunch for both a book and a documentary. I used to run around with Gus Van Sant a lot, and he's kept telling me, you have to write your story because this is a movie, this is a movie, this is a movie. And I don't know, I get excited about those ideas, and then I like start making a record and I kind of forget, and then I start making another record, I forget again. I think it would take really stopping music, because everything that I do, I really want to do with a lot of heart. And I think it's hard to do something with heart when you're racing to like get everything done all the time. I think it would involve like stopping and really just focusing, you know, one thing at a time, and let's put everything into this and take our time with it and really be considerate. And so I really, just the question feels like an encouragement, and so maybe I will. Maybe I will. I'm trying to decide if I need to, like if it's actually important and would be something that leads to more fulfillment in my life. I do want to do it for others as well, but I've made an agreement with myself to do things that really also help me, you know. So, but we'll see. Yeah, for sure. I might do a podcast. Yeah. We'll see.
All right, let's do one last question. I'm going to go over to this gentleman right here. There you go.
It's you. Yeah. Sure. That's amazing. Wow. Yeah. That's a great question. Very thoughtful, and it touches my heart. You and your dad. That's really sweet. I feel like 10 years ago that would have pissed me off. So I'm healing. I've read a whole album about that rage. Yeah, it is interesting. You know, I remember when Bjork was being interviewed about Napster when it started. For anyone who's too young here, like Napster was like the first, like you could pirate songs. You could just take them. You look up an album, you take the song. Suddenly they're on your MP3 player, and it was like a big issue for a lot of people. And I remember reading an interview where they asked Bjork, "What do you think about Napster?" And she said, "I just think it's like little bugs that." It's kind of creepy, crawly, go in and take the song and crawl away, and it's kind of cute or something. She said something like that. And I thought, okay, Bjork.
Who do you think his deal
Okay,
is?
mother.
Yeah.
Yeah. and so I feel like inspired by that response. It's kind of like everyone's just like hearing my song in a way, and rather than getting like frustrated or like, I need them to hear me, I'm trying to just view it as like, life is so weird and so crazy and beautiful and ugly. It's just everything. And that's a part of the everything. And I do think ultimately it does help me in a way, right? And so I'm actually grateful for a TikTok moment, and I wouldn't mind more of those, honestly. So yeah, I feel like the right kids that need to hear the music will find it, and they'll just kind of they'll just know by hearing that, and they'll look for more, and they'll find it. And I'm not too pinched about it. I think it'll be all right. But I do like that question. That makes me think. Yeah.
It's so funny you mentioned Napster, because Napster was about people taking music. Fast forward 25 years later, it's free.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well.
But so, you guys satisfied?
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right, want to thank GRAMMY Museum.
Thank you, GRAMMY Museum.
Jonny Pierce over here. I'm Jason Kramer. And before I press the button, I would say, and this is the drums.
Thank
There
you
you
so
go.
much. Thank you.